Hi everyone, my name is Lorraine Reguli and I run Wording Well. I'm just going to give it a second to see what's happening here. So it looks like we're live and not having any technical issues, so that's great. So as I said, my name is Lorraine Reguli. And I have been a certified high school English teacher for 19 years. And 4 years ago, I started my own word-based business called Wording Well, where I offer 4 services: writing, editing, mentoring, and author assistance services. I'm also a self-published author. To date, I have published 2 books, Risky Issues, which I'll just show you right here. This is a book of short stories, and it's fiction, except for one story in there is actually true. My other book is From Nope to Hope, How I Overcame My Suicidal Thoughts and How You Can Too. And this book is designed to help anyone overcome depression or suicidal thoughts and to learn how to live a happier and healthier life. So those are my 2 books, and I just want to take a minute to talk about today's live video. I'm not going to ask you to buy anything. I mean, if you want to buy my books or utilize my services in the future, that would be great. But there's like no hidden incentive for doing this video. I am doing this strictly to help you. I want to share the information I've learned. I want to give you some tips about writing, editing, and publishing. Tell you a few of the steps that you need to go through in order to become a published author. And I'll even give you a couple of tips on how to market your book. So today you can obviously expect to get tips on how to be a better writer, how to self-edit your work, what a professional editor actually wants from you, how to self-publish a book or an ebook on Amazon, and as I said, a few tips on how to market your book. So again, I just want to be clear. There's no obligation on your part to buy anything at the end. This is not a webinar or anything like that. This is simply a video to share information that will help you. So first, we're going to talk about writing. Now, there's many types of writers and many things that you can write about. So some types of writers are journalists, bloggers, freelancers, authors, poets, all kinds of types of writers. Now, they write different things. Some write news articles, some write poetry, some write essays, some write short stories, some write blog posts, some write books, some write novels or novellas. There's all kinds of things to write. So because of this, speaking to the masses is very difficult. So you're going to have to bear with me here. In terms of writing tips, what we're going to talk about first is the writing process, because there's a lot of steps to the writing process, and it's going to be different for everyone depending on your skill level, your knowledge that you have, and what you are writing. For most people, however, crafting compelling works should follow these basic steps. Number 1, brainstorm. Jot down all your ideas and all the points that you want to cover. You can use this, use a mind map to do this, where you write down, everything like in a bubble type of a thing, or, a center idea with branches coming out on each side, and that will be your subtopics or the things that you want to write about. Now, if you're talking about creating a story, well, you're going to have to include, points for each character and your plot development, things like that. Once you have your brainstorming session done, you're going to make an outline, which means you're going to choose an order in which you're going to present your ideas. Then you're going to write your first draft using whatever method you want. Some people like using stream of consciousness writing, where they don't pay any attention to, you know, their grammar or punctuation or things like that. They just want to get the words out and onto, you know, paper or your screen or wherever you happen to be writing, using whatever writing method you're using. So get that draft out, get your words out on paper. That is the most important thing. Because once they're on paper or your screen or your document, then you can edit your first draft. You can fix your typos. You can create legible sentences and paragraphs. You can ensure that your grammar is correct. And that's going to take, you know, a little bit of time. Obviously, the writing portion takes a lot longer, especially if you're writing something very lengthy, such as a book or an ebook even. But once you have that first draft done, then you can go back and fix it. Then you want to let it sit. Stay away from it. Leave it alone for a week, maybe 2 weeks, even a month. Just let it sit, and then you can go back and edit your second draft. Now, it's a good idea when you're doing this to keep a copy of each draft that you have, just in case you delete something that you later want to retrieve. You can go back and you can say, oh, you know what, I really like that part and I want to add it back in. So you'll have a copy of that if you save each draft as you go. So once you have your book pretty much, or whatever it is that you're writing, done, and you have your second draft edited, you want to polish your work, thus creating a final version that you will eventually send to your editor. So you can repeat this whole process as needed until you think things are perfect. You can get feedback from other people. You can get someone to proofread your work. You can, you know, send it out to your beta readers or to your friends or family or whoever is going to help you improve your piece of work. Now, and that's once you have everything all, you know, as best as you possibly want it, that's the point where you're going to send it an editor so your editor can make it absolutely perfect. Now, before we talk about editing, because there are some editing tips I want to give you, there's a lot of self-editing information that I want to share with you. As an editor, that's where I make most of my money, and so I want to give you as many tips as possible to make your work perfect before you send it to me, because nothing's ever perfect. But before we get into that, I want to talk more about some writing tips, because I have a lot to talk about here. So what you want to do when you're writing is do some research on how you can best use your vocabulary words in your work. And this is, I mention this because your target audience is going to be different from your, you know, another writer's target audience. And so if you have researched your target audience, you know what kind of language they want to read. You know what kind of level they are reading at. I mean, if you're a children's author, you're obviously not going to use big convoluted words when you're talking to children. You want to keep things simple so that they can easily understand it. But if you're a professor at a university and you're writing, you know, a research paper, obviously the language is going to be extremely different. So you have to think of your target audience when you are writing. The right word choice will definitely make your work interesting, depending on who's reading your work. Another tip is to practice your writing. Write every day if you can. Write as often as possible. This is mentioned by a lot of freelance writers out there, a lot of bloggers out there who promote writing. A friend of mine, Ryan Biddulph, he's one of them. He says, write 1,000 words every day without fail. Just do it. And I have to agree with him, although that's not always possible. I know I certainly don't write 1,000 words a day. I mean, I probably do when I consider, all the words I write with emails and, Facebook statuses, updates, and things like that. But if you're talking about writing just a piece of work, no, I don't do that. But I do practice my writing, and I think you should too. By forming a habit of writing daily, things will get easier for you. You will, have more ideas, and words will just flow into your brain much quicker. You won't suffer from writer's block, which is something that a lot of writers suffer from. They look at a blank screen and they're like, oh my God, what am I going to write? And if you practice your habit of writing daily, you're not going to suffer from that. Okay, so the next tip is to be strict with yourself and create a schedule that you can stick to. I think using a schedule for writing, especially if you're working on a bigger project, is an excellent idea, and I'll tell you why. Because if you can take your book and you can break it down into sections, and you can say, okay, this week I'm going to write chapter 1. Next week I'm going to write chapter 2. The week after that I'm going to write chapter 3. And then the 4th week I'm going to take a break. You can easily plot out on your calendar when you can write, the days where you will be doing some writing, and it will allow you for flexibility in your schedule, because we all know that things happen, things come up, we get busy. Maybe your child falls and breaks their arm and you have to rush to the emergency, and then you have to care for them and spend extra time doing that. So there's a lot of things that take away from our best laid plans. And that's why having a flexible writing schedule works the best, because it will allow you to have a little bit of wiggle room and some freedom to basically live life and deal with life. And that's where having an outline really, really helps, because you can take a look at your outline and your writing plan, and you can see where you can make some tweaks. I mean, sometimes, it's just like making a deadline for yourself. If you say, okay, well, I want to have chapter 1 written by the end of this week, and, there's only 3 days of the week where you only have an hour each day to work on it, that's fine. But if something happens and you're unable to work for one of those hours, that's fine too. Don't be so hard on yourself. But be strict with yourself and say, okay, I have to get this done. I'm going to get this done. And then modify your plan so that you can get it done. Okay, another thing that will help you, especially if you suffer from writer's block, but it will help you in general anyway, is to vary your writing environments, but stick to your best one. So because there's so many different writing methods out there, some people will sit at their laptop and they'll just type away right away, no problem. Others will use their phone and type on their phone and then copy it into a Word document. A lot of people use Google Docs. I personally love using Google Docs for drafts, and I'll tell you why. On my phone is the Google Doc app, which means I can open that app at any time, wherever I happen to be, whether I'm at my mom's house, I'm at my friend's house, I'm at my son's house, or I'm just out in public, wherever I happen to be, and I'm hit with inspiration and I want to make a note, or I want to, get something down on paper or on the screen for later. I can simply grab my phone, open that app, and, enter the, the thoughts and ideas I have. But another thing is I have speech to text enabled on my phone, and so I can simply speak and it will record, it will translate my words into text and record everything for later. And then I can go back and I can, when I get to my laptop, I can open my Google Doc, I can copy and paste whatever I wrote or recorded into a Word document, and then I can go from there. And that to me is one of the most awesome features of having a phone and having the different apps available to writers today. It's just wonderful. Especially because, you're hit with inspiration a lot of the times when you're out and away from your laptop, and you think to yourself, oh, you know what, I have to make a note of that. I have to remember that for later. So if you have a phone and you're able to do that, I highly suggest doing that. Another benefit of using your phone for that is, or even just varying, using your writing environments to help you and to vary your writing environments. I know one time, like, I woke up in bed one day and I was really tired and I didn't want to get up, and I was sitting there thinking about all the things I needed to do, and I just didn't want to go and sit at my laptop. And so I simply grabbed my phone and I started recording things. So I mean, even laying, in the comfort of your bed and being, a writer from that, position was pretty amazing. And then, of course, later you can always go back to it, like I said, transfer it to your computer and copy and paste it into a Word document. Okay, so bloggers, freelancers, authors, we're all writers. Now, I've written so many different writing tips on my website that I wasn't sure what to talk about today. So I think what I might do is put together a specific blog post that incorporates all of the information I'm talking about today, plus link to this video, which I will likely put up on YouTube later. I'll get it converted and put it up on my YouTube channel, because there's so much information in it that I think people should have access to it all the time, whenever it's convenient for them. I know not everybody can make the Facebook Live videos and show up, and there's a few people that are watching live right now, and I just want to give a shout out to them, like Max and Prince. Thank you again for letting me speak to your group members. And there's somebody's name, I can't even pronounce it, but hi, I liked your comments. So, and Max, I just wanted to say that Max is actually one of probably my biggest fans and friends, because he wrote 3 books, and I'm going to show them to you here. I have copies of them. His first book is called Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success. And it's a short little book. It's got 11 steps to success that Max has outlined for you, and I love this book. It's great because he just lists the steps right in order of how to be successful. So his second book, yes, and some of you might be wondering, yes, Max is blind, and yes, he is an author. He is so much more, though. He's probably my biggest inspiration. He once upon a time weighed over 500 pounds and ended up losing over half his weight. He now weighs, I think, probably about 250, and he's over 6 feet tall, so it's a pretty good weight for him. And in addition to being an entrepreneur and everything else, a podcaster and everything else he does, his second book is all about his weight loss journey, And basically, it's an easy to follow guide for weight loss success. And it's called It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag. So this is, I'm just showing it on the screen here. I'm showing it to you because this is one of the samples of a book where I've helped someone self-publish it. I helped him with all 3 of his books. His 3rd book is actually The Blind Blogger's New York City or NYC Adventures, because Max ended up entering a contest for writers called the Amtrak Writer in Residency Contest. It's open to U.S. citizens only. And every year they choose 24 people to, they give them a free train ride to anywhere they want to go. And it's called Writers in Residency because you're expected to kind of write during your train ride. So he lives, I don't know how many of you know about the United States and the geography of it, but he lives just outside of Houston, which is in kind of, if you're looking at a map of the states, it's kind of in the lower left-hand side, and he chose to travel to New York City, which is in the upper right-hand side of the country. And so he chronicled his experiences and all the adventures he went through there, even to the point where he took pictures, or he got people to take pictures. And so there's a lot of pictures in the book, you know, beginning with him leaving his house here with, you know, his suitcase, and then traveling on the train and being at the station. And then, I mean, he did so many cool things. He went to visit the Statue of Liberty. So he took a ferry across, I don't know if is it Staten Island? I'm not sure. Anyways, he took a ferry to go out and see the Statue of Liberty. He went ice skating in Rockefeller Center. He went, he took a hansom cab. It was just a really incredible journey that he had went on. And when he wrote about it, I think this is probably one of the most enjoyable things I've ever edited. And I was so pleased that Max, you know, chose me to help him publish them, because they were just fantastic stories that he has. And Max is a blogger as well, like, you know, so many of us are. And oh my goodness, he's a life coach. I could talk about Max all day, but that's not why we're here. We are here to talk about different things involving writing. One of them is blogging, and I could talk about blogging all day, but I think what I would rather tell you is that I've written a series of articles for Wording Well, all about blogging, all about writing, all that, you know, that includes so many different tips. There's one that I wrote about creating a blog post, and it provides you know, a lot of different tips, like adding relevant links where appropriate, including OBLs and IBLs, which are outbound links and inbound links, backing up your statistics with proof, like using screenshots, formatting things properly, the headers and the subheaders, adding click-to-tweet links, highlighting important points. I could go on and on about the different things about that. However, I do want to mention that I will list a lot of these articles in the comments. For example, there's one that I wrote called 5 Sites to Use to Improve Your Writing Skills. Writing is therapeutic and help me cope with being raped. That's why a lot of us do write, because we have been through some kind of experience. It doesn't always have to be traumatic. It could be a wonderful experience as well. But we write about it, and because we want to share those experiences with other people, and we want to maybe, you know, keep kind of a record or a diary of sorts, so that maybe, you know, one day we might write our memoirs. So another post is 3 ways for becoming a more productive writer. Another one is 10 awesome editing tips and 10 best editing tools for writers and bloggers. How blogging can help your business thrive, and how writers can use blogging to increase their reading audience. Some people want to know, can you be a freelance writer and a fiction writer? Of course. You can write across many genres. You can be a different type of writer. I mean, I'm a blogger. I'm an author. I'm a freelancer. I'm a poet. I have written so many different things. You know, and a lot of us do. We do have varied interests when we write. I do want to talk about writing failure a little bit, because before I do that, I just want to check the comments and see if there's something I missed, because I'm actually looking at my phone, because I've made, you know, I actually made a Google Doc, and this is why I love Google Docs so much, because I started it on my computer by copying and pasting all the links, and then I open the app on my phone, because my computer is doing the live video recording me, and so there's only, you know, I don't want to be flipping all over the place with the screen, because I don't know how exactly that works. I'm not a super technical person. I do know a few little tricks though, and so when I was thinking about what to do for this live video and how much to include, I copied and pasted a lot of information into one Google Doc so that I could simply just look at my phone as I'm talking to you. I mean, you can see me, but I can't see you. I can see the comments and I can see if people are watching or joining, but it's, you know, I can't see you face to face. So, you know, that kind of sucks, but at least you can see me and you can hear me, and we'll be able to interact after. So that's a good thing. Okay, so overcoming writing failure with a personalized writing plan is a guest post I wrote actually for a website called Book Designer. And it lists a lot of do's and don'ts to consider when devising your writing plan. So I just want to mention a few of them here. Do write at your optimal time. If you don't know what your optimal time is, that's the time when you write your best, when you're in best mood to write. For me, that's at night, when it's nice and quiet, there's nobody around, I don't, you know, I don't hear a lot of traffic going by. It's, you know, my neighbors are mostly sleeping. And so, you know, my environment is very calm and peaceful and serene. And that's the type of atmosphere I personally like to write in. Now, for some people, your optimal writing time is right first thing in the morning. They will get up even an hour earlier to do their writing and get it done. For some people, it's in the afternoon. So find your optimal writing time and write during that time. Strike a work-life balance that works for you. Okay, now this is, I think, a pretty much generalized piece of information that we all probably know already. It is worth mentioning, though, because having a good balance in your life will keep you happier and healthier. I know for me, I tend to spend a lot of time sitting at my computer, either writing, editing, blogging, email, you know, doing whatever, email. I do a lot of sitting in my life, and so something, and I do it for hours on end, and I know that that's not healthy. And so what I try and do is I try and get up every, you know, every so often, whether it's every 30 minutes or at least once an hour, you know, take a 10-minute break. A lot of people might recognize this as the Pomodoro technique, where, you know, you work for 50 minutes and take a 10-minute break, or work for 20 minutes, take a 5-minute break. However, however it kind of works for you. Whenever you're working, you also want to balance that time out with your life. You want to enjoy your life, whether it's spending time with your family, your friends, going out, whether it's watching TV, whether it's, leisure time, spending it reading a book for enjoyment, whether it's painting or working on another hobby, whatever it is, make sure that you balance your time evenly so that you don't always feel like you're stressed out and you're bogged down with work, and and you feel like, oh my God, I need a vacation. It's really important to have a balance in your life. So that's whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's writing or whatever your occupation happens to be. I already mentioned about using a calendar to help you, but what I didn't mention is to make note of the different events that are happening in your life, such as holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, annual events that happen, but also your weekly events or even seasonal events. For me, I love watching TV. I am a huge couch potato. Although I generally watch it from bed, where I'm a little bit more comfortable. And because I like TV so much, I like to watch the shows when they're on, or at least the day that they happen. And so Wednesdays, if there's any Survivor fans out there, Wednesday is Survivor Day. That's when it's on. And, my life revolves around those kinds of things. For me, it's a priority because that's my leisure time. So in order to keep that good work-life balance intact, I make sure that I enjoy my leisure time, and I will rearrange my schedule around it. So that's one thing that you should consider doing too when you're creating your schedule for writing, is to put in all of the different tasks or activities that are important to you. And and that includes your health. When I was reading Max's book, It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, one of the tips he mentioned in here is to put health activities on your schedule. And I had never really thought about that before. Yes, I'm an overweight person and I don't exercise a lot. And, it's my schedule certainly never included time for, I'm scheduling a workout on Tuesday from 7 till 8. That never happened. But after reading Max's book and making some decisions to improve my life, I started doing that. 3 years ago, I was actually diagnosed with being a diabetic. And so I had to make a lot of lifestyle changes and changes to my diet because of that. And so it was really timely that just, a year later, I ended up reading, Max hired me to edit his book, It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, because it really taught me, it kind of drilled into my head some of the techniques that he used in his weight loss journey. And I know as writers, we do so much sitting that a lot of us do end up gaining, those few extra pounds because we're not exercising. We're focusing on, writing our words, writing our stories, whatever it is that we're writing. And so that's, that's something that our health is super important, and we have to remember to, to take care of ourselves, because, we can be the best writer in the world, but if we're dead and we can't write anymore, that's certainly a huge shame. So we have to take care of our bodies. We have to take care of ourselves and make sure that, we are in optimal health, or at least strive to get to that optimal health. because we need to be there for our readers. We need to be there for our family. We need to be there for everyone else. So that's really important. Some of you might know that I actually suffered from, I ended up in the hospital several months back at the end of May, at the beginning of June, and I ended up having blood clots in my lungs. And so I asked the doctor, I said, like, if I hadn't have come into the hospital, what would have happened? Would I have had a heart attack? And he said, yeah, probably. And, you might not be here. And it was a really scary experience for me. So, thankfully, I was able to get on the right medication. They were able to treat me, and and that's why I'm able to be here today. So, yay for health, right? A couple more points. Do reward yourself often. Celebrate your victories, regardless of their size, because this will help you to stay motivated so you can continue reaching your goals. And don't beat yourself up if you fail every now and then. Failure is a part of life. Forgive yourself and just move on. And if you created a schedule, you already allowed for that kind of flexibility, so it should be easy, right? But definitely, reward yourself and do it often. Whether it's, treating yourself to a night out, or, a dinner at your favorite restaurant, or, buying yourself a treat or a new outfit, or whatever it happens to be. Some might be just, enjoying time alone, having a candlelit bubble bath, or, taking your book into the bathtub and just relaxing and reading by candlelight. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to pamper yourself and treat yourself, that you have to remember you are number one. Okay. I knew there was a lot to the writing portion of this. There's not as much to the editing section, which is kind of a good thing because this is already getting pretty long. But a lot of tips for editing you already know. I mean, read your work out loud. That's kind of a given, because if you read your work out loud, or if you get someone else to read it, you'll be able to spot those little tiny mistakes that when you hear something that you don't always see. And this is actually pretty cool because it works, and it works well. When I was editing all three of Max's books, because he's blind, he's not able to read them with his eyes. He has to read them with his ears, which means his screen reader technology will read the words to him. So when I'm editing, I look at the words on paper and I fix everything up. But if I'm doing a line edit and I change, one or two words around, or just, delete one word and add in another, sometimes, although I am like 99% perfect, I do make the occasional mistake on the first pass. And so when I would send the document back to Max, I'd say, okay, here, I edited this chapter, give it a listen and see how it is. And if there was something that didn't sound quite right, Max would point it out to me and say, hey, Lorraine, I think there's like something that needs your attention over here. And I'll go back and look at it and be like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. So having something, having your work read aloud, whether it's, by you or by someone else to you, or even just having another person help you proofread it. Another set of eyes or ears on your work is definitely going to help you improve your work. Okay, I have a blog post called 5 Self-Editing Hacks plus 17 additional ones in a checklist. Now, I am going to give you a little treat. I'm going to tell you some of those tips rather than have you download, and join my email list, because I promised you I didn't want anything from you and I was going to just give you things. I want to share those 17 tips here. Now, you are free, of course, to visit my website, and it's the blog post is listed on my resource page right at the top, so you can click on the link and visit the post and download the checklist if you want. But I am going to go through those 17 additional points that are not in that are not in the blog post, but that are in my checklist. So I just hit my phone and now I lost it. Okay, so point number 1 is to avoid cliches like the plague. You've heard of, you know what a cliche is. If you're not sure whether you've used them in your text, there's actually a cliche finder website called cliche.theinfo.org, and it will tell you if you have used a cliche. It will search for them. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, easy, take a break from your work. You need to take your mind off of what you just wrote, and so after some time has passed, you can go back to it, you can resume your writing, you'll be able to approach things with fresh eyes. And that will help you spot your mistakes, as well as allow you to see other things that might need changing or reordering or restructuring. Tip number 3, use the find and replace function in Word. One of the first things that I do when I edit anything is I do a simple find and replace searches. First, I look for double spaces and I replace them with single spaces after the periods or question marks or exclamation marks. And, because once upon a time, several years ago, especially for those of us writers who are older, we were taught when we were typing to put 2 spaces after a period at the end of a sentence when we were typing on a computer. And many of us fell into that habit, and automatically our thumbs are trained, like hit the space bar twice. And now that is not the case. 1 space after the period is all that we need. So I do a find and replace search before I even start editing someone's document. I also search for common mistakes that people make, especially when they're typing. Like some people will write the word the twice in a row. And the reason I search for this is because our eyes do not always pick that extra the up when we're reading. We will just skip across it and read the as if it's the. So that's one thing I also look for. So there's a few things that I do that you can do as well, and those are them. Use that find and replace function. Okay, tip number 4, watch for repetition. Writers often use the same word in the same paragraph, and so instead of using that exact word, use a synonym. Use a thesaurus to help you find similar words. That's why thesaurus were invented. Okay. So for example, I'm going to read you a sentence. I could either decide to forgive him and move forward with our relationship, or I could end things and move forward to the next chapter of my life. The use of the word forward is used twice there. Now, I would edited that word to change, instead of forward, you can use onward. Now, the onward is similar to forward, but at least it's a different type of word. So even if a word, you know, sounds similar, it's a completely different word. That's why synonyms are good to use. A lot of people don't capitalize proper nouns, and so that's tip number 5. Make sure that nouns that refer to a person, place, or thing are capitalized. Names, cities, countries, and company names. Those are always capitalized. Hyphens. Oh my God, tip number 6, use hyphens. They're most commonly used for compound adjectives, which are words that describe something. Adjectives are words that describe something. Compound adjectives are those that use 2 words or more to form one hyphenated word. So here's an example. 6-year-old. 6 hyphen year hyphen old. Bride-to-be. Who is she? She's the bride-to-be. She is that one thing. She is not those 3 different words. She is that one thing. So bride-to-be, father-to-be, mother-to-be, all those kinds of compound adjectives use hyphens. Long distance. If you're in a long distance relationship, long distance is the adjective. It's the word, the 2 words that forms one, not one word, but one hyphenated adjective to describe the relationship. What kind of relationship is it? It's a long distance relationship. Man-eating shark. Award-winning author. So man-eating gets hyphenated. It's a man-eating shark. Award-winning author. Award-winning gets hyphenated. If you're an award-winning author, you hyphenate award-winning. Okay, so watch your use of hyphens. Tip number 7 is watch your use of the 2 words that and which. That is almost always used as part of a restrictive clause, which is part of a sentence that restricts another part of the sentence and cannot be removed. Which, W-H-I-C-H, is commonly used in non-restrictive clauses. This means that parts of a sentence that could be removed without altering the meaning of the original sentence. So, for example, foods that are high in protein are good for you. That's, oh, excuse me. I need some water or a drink here. I've been talking too much. Sorry. My old blog posts, which were written when I was a newbie blogger, are not as good as my current blog posts. In that sentence, okay, sorry. In the first sentence, none of the words can be removed, and that's why we use the word that. Foods that are high in protein are good for you. In the second sentence, my old blog posts, which were written when I was a newbie blogger, are not as good as my current blog posts. I can take the phrase, which were written when I was a newbie blogger. I can remove that completely from that sentence, and the sentence will still make sense. So my old blog posts are not as good as my current blog posts. That is still a completely fine sentence. So that and which are 2 words that you really need to pay attention to. And all of this information under this tip is actually written in the checklist that I created. I just copy and pasted it into my phone, and I'm kind of reading it right from my phone. So if you want more clarification, then just, please go and download that checklist with all the tips, because it will, it will be something you can have for free and refer to at any time. So tip number 8, read works written by professional authors. Don't just read blog posts. Read magazines. Read novels. By reading professionally edited works, you're going to learn a lot, because you will notice the correct way that others write. You will learn new words too. So you will also be able to apply your newfound knowledge to your own writing. Tip number 9, know that writing blog posts is different from writing essays or books. Online writing follows a few different rules than other types of works that we write do. They're different from essays, they're different from book writing. Blog posts are completely different, and if you're writing for the web, you need to make sure that your writing is scannable by using headings and bullet points or numbered points or lists. Paragraphs in online blog posts should be short, and they should be separated by a lot of white space. Whereas if you're writing a novel, your paragraphs will be longer and there's no spaces between paragraphs. It's like one paragraph and then a new paragraph, not separated by the white space. So it's important to structure your writing accordingly. Tip number 10, know when to use quotation marks. Quotation marks are used in many different situations. They are most often used when someone is speaking or if someone is being quoted. For example, John said, comma, and then you open the quotation marks, "Hi, my name is John. It's nice to meet you." And then you close the quotes. I replied, "Hi, John. My name is Lorraine, and the pleasure is mine." Around the words that I spoke, that's where the quotation marks go. If you're taking an excerpt from another blog post, you should credit the source. And if this applies to anything, if you're taking someone else's words, and you're using them in either a Facebook post, a blog post, where status update, wherever, you should give the original author the credit. So, for example, and how to do this is just by copying their text, putting it in quotations, and then mentioning the source. So, for example, I found out from one particular post that companies and organizations of all kinds, without exceptions, are singular entities and should be referred to as such. And where I said this post, that's where I inserted a hyperlink to the post where I found it. So because I wanted to use that information, instead of simply copying it and therefore stealing it or plagiarizing it and passing it off as my own writing, I inserted quotations around it and I linked to the source. So that's basically the correct way of how to steal things from other people. You have to give them credit. Quotations are also used to highlight certain words, like I just did with the word steal in the previous sentence, because I told you I'm reading from my phone here. So this is the proper way to steal something from someone else. When you're talking, you can just emphasize the word where I said, steal. Okay, you can also use bold or italics to highlight words as well. When we're talking, we obviously talk with a different, inflection in our voice. But if you're quoting a sentence that has quotations in it, what you need to do is to insert double quotation marks around the whole thing that you're copying, piece that you're copying, and then change the original double quotation marks to single quotation marks. So that's how come you will often see single quotation marks within the whole double quotation marks. And I give an example in my handouts, and I show you how it's actually done. So that's something that a lot of people don't do. Yeah, so really watch your use of quotation marks. Tip number 11, we're almost done here. Shorten run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are often really long and contain the word and. Omit the word and, put a period there, and start the new sentence with the new thought. Just capitalize the next word. So here is an example. I am a blogger, an English teacher, an author, and a freelance editor for hire. And I work closely with new bloggers and freelancers, helping them learn about the tricks of the trade. That's more than just one sentence. It's a run-on sentence right now because it has so many ands in it. And it has a lot of commas, which can be confusing to a lot of people. So even though it's grammatically correct, I can turn it into 2 sentences quite easily. So using the instructions I just told you about, this sentence would now become 2 sentences. I am a blogger, an English teacher, an author, and a freelancer for hire. I work closely with new bloggers and freelancers, helping them to learn about the tricks of the trade. That sounds so much better than one whole long sentence. And no, this is all true. I do offer coaching services and mentoring services, as well as writing and editing services, as well as author assistant services. So yeah, if you need any help with something, then feel free to shoot me an email, send me a friend request, and then a message on Facebook, leave a comment somewhere where I'll see it. Feel free to reach out to me, please. I am here to help you. Tip number 12, pay attention to your mistakes and try and learn from them. If someone points something out to you, like if you're constantly getting a certain word, if you're spelling it wrong and somebody tells you, you know, here's the correct spelling, listen to them. They're only trying to help you. So please do your part and pay attention and try and learn. If you're unable to find mistakes yourself, obviously you can't. You need someone to point it out to you. That's why, you know, it's a good thing to ask others for help. A lot of people sometimes will just shoot me a message on Facebook, you know, showing me 2 sentences and then saying, hey, which one is correct? And if neither one is correct, I'll correct it for them and say this one. Or I'll just tell them which one is correct if one of them happens to be correct and the other is not. Like that kind of stuff I will do for free. I'm not going to charge you for editing a sentence or, you know, sentence or 2. Tip number 13 we've already talked about, which is read aloud what you've written. Tip number 14 is use readability tools to check the readability of your writing. And there's a whole blog post on my website on WordingWell that talks about the readability and readability tools. So, and in my checklist, I've provided a link there. And the post is just called readability. So you can simply search Google for readability or readability tools, and you'll be able to find like a whole ton. Tip number 15, this is something that not a lot of people do when they're editing their work. They will generally just use the screen or, you know, try and read it either off their Word document or whatever. But if you make a printout of your work, so tip number 15 is make a printout of your work. You're more likely to spot errors if you're actually reading from a physical piece of paper. I know for me, when I'm editing a really long book or a novel, like Max's book, for example, or even, you know, when I wrote From Nope to Hope, I mean, you can see this is a fairly good size book here, and when you're reading something, you know, from a Word document or a Google document or wherever it happens to be, it's completely different from, you know, when you flip through and you're looking, you know, at the different things. You know, a physical book, like you can spot things a lot more easier. So I would suggest printing out a copy of whatever it is that you are trying to edit and have a read through it. Yeah, so that's a good point there. Number 16 is ask for proofreading help from your friends, from your family, from, you know, people that are in a writing group that you belong to, especially a writing critique group. You can find different writing critique groups just by doing a simple search, whether it's on Facebook or on Google. If lack of money is the reason that you're not hiring an editor, perhaps you can do an exchange of services with someone else. I know editors can be fairly expensive, especially if we're talking, novel length editing. So for example, if you are an author who happens to be a graphics designer, maybe you have those kinds of skills in your skill set. Maybe you can exchange image creation with an editor who is a blogger, such as myself, for example. I did that with one of my, clients and friends, fellow bloggers. He wrote a book, and he's a Nigerian writer, and so he didn't have a lot of money, but he was really good at creating images. And I can create images for my blog posts, and I do, but I don't like doing it. It's a task that I would rather have someone else do. And so when he asked me about editing his book, it wasn't a super long book, and I said, you know what? Okay, let's make a deal. You create so many, I'll give you the titles, and you can create these images for my blog posts. And you can create so many images, and I'll edit your book, and boom, we had a deal there, and exchange. We bartered. So that is something that you cannot do. I mean, something that you can do if you cannot afford to. Tip number 17: hire an editor. Okay, that's obviously the easiest way to go about doing things, editing your work, is to have someone else do it. And when you are looking for an editor, I'm not saying that you have to hire me, but I'm saying here's some things to look for. Look for their skills. Look for mistakes in their own writing. If you visit my website and you read my blog posts, you are going to see perfect writing. All of my blog posts have been edited by me, whether they're guest posts or my own posts. And if you do happen to find a mistake, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 10% off if you can point that mistake out to me. Actually, heck, you know what? I'll make it 25%. Actually, you know what? I'll make it 50%, because I don't think that there's any mistakes on my website. So if you need me to hire something, I'm going to put a stipulation on this, 25,000 words or less. Okay? There's a challenge for you. I have an eagle eye, and I use it. And I always go back and, make sure that there's no mistakes, or if there is, they get corrected right away. So that's one thing how you can tell if an editor is good. If their writing is good. If their writing doesn't contain any mistakes, you know that they know how to write, they know how to edit others' writing, they know what they're doing. You can also, when you're looking for an editor, you can read their testimonials they have received from others. Don't judge them how they speak. Sometimes your tongue, you trip over your words. But if you take a look at the testimonials that I have received from other people, you'll find that every single one of them, people singing praises about me. Okay, so the last 2 points, we're almost done. I know this is a super long video, but I do want to talk quickly for about another maybe 3 minutes about 2 more things. What an editor wants from you, which is the best possible version of your work that you can make it. And I want to talk about how to self-publish a book on Amazon. Self-publishing is something anyone can do. You don't have to have, a teaching degree. You don't have to have a writing degree. You don't have to have a journalism degree. If you can write and you have an editor to help you make your words perfect, boom, self-publish on Amazon. Easy peasy stuff. The steps: create a book or create an ebook, format it properly, because Amazon has specific ways that they want things uploaded to their site. Create a cover. Now you might need some help doing that. You might need to have, hire a cover designer to do that. I know I certainly did. Get that cover formatted. Again, they, instead of a JPEG or PNG file, they want a PDF file. So Amazon, is very specific on what they want uploaded to their site. Then create your Amazon account and fill out, all of the necessary information. Upload your files, and then wait for Amazon to approve them. And usually it happens within 24 hours, and boom, you are a published author on Amazon. Now, when you're filling out your, when you're creating your Amazon account, if you don't already have one, as an author, you have to fill out all your taxation information, and you have to set up your distribution channels once all your book files have been proofed and approved. You have to determine the selling price of your book. You should obtain your own ISBN number. ISBN stands for International Standard Book Number. Canadian residents get them for free. US residents have to buy them. However, Amazon, if you do not have one, Amazon will assign an ASIN number, not an ISBN number. The ISBN number is a little bit more important than an ASIN number. So do some research, whatever country you happen to live in, look up the laws for ISBNs, find out if they're free, find out, how to pay for them. I highly suggest, forking out a couple of bucks at the beginning to pay for them, because number one, it just makes you look more professional if you have an ISBN number. And number two, it's easier for people to find your book and track your book. Okay, we talked a little bit about designing your cover. A lot of people have to hire someone to do that. And I am one of those people because I do not know how to design covers at all. I do know people who do, so I can put you in touch with a good cover designer if you need one. I personally use a guy named Ravi Verma, and he lives in India, and his rates are comparatively cheap when you compare them to US companies or US private freelancers who are book designers. I think Ravi charges anywhere between $20 and $50 depending on what you want. So that's super cheap, and his work is great. I mean, take a look at this cover here. It's gorgeous. I love it. He was even able to, I asked him, I said, I want a rainbow in there too. He added the rainbow. The back cover, perfect. I love it. He did such a good job. And he did Max's book too, using a photo that Max had taken in New York. So Ravi came up with this. You'll notice in the word blind, that's actually, I'll see if I can get a close up. You can see it's the Statue of Liberty. When you think New York, you think Statue of Liberty. And so, and he used colors that popped. It's a fabulous cover. I mean, the only regret I have is that Max can't see it because he's blind. But all of his friends have told him how awesome it is. And that's actually a picture of Max right in the middle there with his cane. And I am proud to say that I'm the one that chose that picture to be on the front cover. So, yeah. Nice work, Ravi. Okay, one more thing that I want to mention is, and this actually I could probably go on for hours about this, but I'm just going to make it short and sweet, and that's how to market your books. Because once you actually have your book up on Amazon and you want to sell it, yes, you're going to blog about it. Yes, you're going to share links on social media. You're going to tell your friends. You're going to tell your family. But if you have your own website, you can get an email list. If you have to build an email list, you can give a freebie away. That's how most people build their email lists. So a freebie, that can be pretty much anything from a sample, like maybe it's a short story, maybe it's a book of tips, maybe it's some kind of, whatever it happens to be, it's something that you want to give for free to people who are in your target audience. That way, if they're in your target audience, when you do have a book to sell them, you can email them and say, hey, guess what, guys? I just wrote a book. I think you'd like it. Here's the link to buy it. Go and check it out. And that way you'll make more book sales. So an email list is super important. How to market your books. You can use paid ads on Facebook. You could join groups that contain readers for that genre. So say, for example, you're a romance writer. There's probably tons of groups out there for romance writers. Join one of them. And if they're or mystery writers, whatever your genre happens to be, if you're a novelist or an author in that genre, join where you will find readers for that. You could also participate in podcasts. That's been really helpful to me in promoting From Nope to Hope, because when I wrote this, this book is a self-help book, and so it provides tips to people on how to live a better life and be happier with themselves. And so I've appeared on, so many different podcasts, like Never Ever Give Up Hope by Carol Graham. That was one of them. There's been so many. I have a whole list listed on my website. This, you can see, has my book cover on it. So pamphlets are another way that you can promote your books, especially in real life, if you're attending an event, or you can send them out to if you know someone who can deliver flyers, maybe you can print them out and they'll deliver them for you. This is a little pamphlet I made up on the computer. I made up 2 pages, one page that has that on it, another page that has this. Then I got it printed out, folded. All I had to do was fold it in half, and it has all the information, about where. Here it has where to buy the book. Here it has about the book, how to get autographed copies, how to contact me. It talks about what the book contains, and it's got a lovely color picture of the book on it. So this has been really helpful in sharing and getting the word out about my book. And so pamphlets and things like that are very good for you to use as well. If you are strictly like trying to promote things online, you can do a Facebook event. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people, create events, especially if you're having a launch party for your book. There's all kinds of different ways to market your books. And there's probably a ton more that I don't have on my list here. But you can certainly, do a Google search and, how can I market my books? Give me a list, and tons of information will pop up. Okay, so I have been speaking now for 1 hour and 20 minutes, and I have to apologize for this being so long. I wish it could have been shorter. I probably, looking back now, I probably should have talked about writing in one Facebook Live, editing in another Facebook Live, and publishing in another. However, they're all here. This is one video. It's probably going to become an excellent resource for someone. And as I mentioned earlier, I am going to put together something for, well, I can, if you want, what I will do is I can even just send you a link to the Google Doc that contains all this information if you want. I don't know. I'm gonna do something. I'm not sure exactly what to do, but all of the resources and links and everything I mentioned, I'm gonna put something out there for people to access. So watch my website for that. And thank you so much for watching and listening. And I really appreciate Max and Prince. They've been people who have watched or listened to this whole entire live, and I just want to extend my appreciation to you, especially Max, because I see that you've left a lot of comments and about all the things I did for you. Thank you, Prince, for allowing me to have this video hosted right in your group. I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate you mentioning the links in the comments, especially the one to the self-editing hacks. Thank you so much for that. And to everyone else, I hope to connect with you at some point. I'm a very friendly person, so please, don't be shy about reaching out to me. I'm generally always available by email and usually by Facebook Messenger. So those are my two preferred methods of contact. I'm not on Twitter so much, but I definitely check my email all the time, and I check Facebook all the time. So those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask. I am here to help, and I want to help you. Okay? So with that, I will say farewell for now, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.